Jew goes to Poland as tourist.
You and Mom never talked about the past, so I wanted to see where you grew up.
I couldn't sleep. The bed was so lumpy. It's good for the sex, but not for the sleeping.
Dad, don't.
Today we go to Warsaw Ghetto Wall.
I really don't think this is the Warsaw Ghetto Wall.
Ruthie, the wall is a wall.
Say the cheese.
Cheese.
The cheese. Stop derailing this trip.
It used to be full of people this time of night, before the Germans forced us into the ghetto.
What you and your father do this trip, it is not easy.
Ruthie, if you want to see my old home, I'll show you the house.
Dad, what's wrong?
That teapot and even those cups belong to my mother.
Dad, why do we have to leave?
To nie jest wasza własność.
You know, Jews were murdered when they went back to their old houses.
The teapot is yours, which means it's important.
Clearly, you have none of the common sense.
Because I think we did V for Vendetta years ago.
Oh, I remember those days. Yes, absolutely. Nice to see you again.
And Julia, a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
What an amazing film. And it touches all those notes that a human experience should touch. I mean, I know that my father and grandparents never wanted to talk about the old country. And it was, even though that I think it would have done them good, they just didn't do it until they were kind of faced with it. And so, Stephen, your character is in kind of that same boat.
Absolutely. And I was in real life too. My grandfather came from Hungary and he never talked about the past. He thought of himself as an Englishman, And we had cousins one from Austria who claimed he'd forgotten how to speak German, which was nonsensical. He was 20 when he left Austria, and the idea that the language could have completely deserted him. And I thought there was a kind of joke or a stubbornness. Why weren't I wanted to talk about it? I want to know what they ate, how they lived. And you don't want to know that. You don't want to know that. And of course, I now realize they were thinking they were protecting me from the horrors they experienced. But as you rightly said, it would have done them good. And very often, some of them go to the grave never really reconciling their past with their present. The scripts just screamed with authenticity and truthfulness when they wrote it.
And Julia, as first of all, as the co-writer for this, what amazing words that you came up with. I mean, it's poetry almost. And then your camera you instinctively know where to put your camera to get the most dramatic effect out of everything.
Thank you so much. I will also say that to my cinematographer, Daniela.
Yeah.
I will let her know. Thank you. Yeah. But I had Lily Brett's amazing novel, and a lot of it comes from there.
I know that you also have an affinity toward comedy, and there's moments in this that are quite funny, and yet done in such a way that the humor is protecting you, it seems, from
Exactly. And I think that's such a key to the way humans respond. That they use humor as a shield and an armor, so that nothing can get through to them, to show, because, gosh, I mean, you've only got to use your imagination, I suppose, to think of him as a boy and a young man, first of all being forced out of the house where he grew up and moved into a ghetto, and the horror and the starvation and the fear of the ghetto, and suddenly seeing friends of yours ignoring you, and friends of yours who are like you, competing for bread and revealing the basest human instincts, and then to go to a death camp like Auschwitz. I mean, these experiences, today we would talk about opening up and healing and so on, but that this wasn't a period of that kind of therapy and that kind of language. It was just the armor, as you rightly say, of humor and simply of ignoring the past and saying, I'm through it, I'm defeating it, the future is all.
And in my final seconds with you, Julia, the teapot, and that is that fragment of his childhood that makes it real.
You so understand film. That's exactly right. It's a teapot, and it's so much more.
Yeah.
Your performance in this, my God, is brilliant.
That means so much to me. And, it means so much to me that you share that about your family. And I'm sorry that you dealt with that, the complexity of that, because on the one hand, I'm sure that, like all of us, you have an appreciation of the fears that your parents had and an empathy for them. But on the other hand, transgenerational trauma is a true mother effer, and it really has a deep, deep effect. And I think that was one of the things that really drew me to this film, was that I hoped that it would open up conversations between parents and children that would allow for healing in both directions. And this is something that I witnessed deeply and closely with my, post-war Jewish grandparents, who were working so hard to assimilate and escape their Eastern European background that there was a lot that they didn't want us to know. And then also seeing the way that carried over to my mother, who, even as an artist and a radical feminist and a tough lady, that's my cat Truman just wanting to say hello to you, had pain and her own challenges. Hello, Tony. Had pain and her own challenges that were hard for her to express, precisely because they were hard for her parents to express. And I actually think watching this movie together was a very healing thing for my mother and me. And I hope it'll have the same effect for other people.
I think that generation and the generation before it, they did have a lot of repressed fear that they handed to us by saying, no, I don't want to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think that, I did a lot of reading about transgenerational trauma and second generation Holocaust survivors in approaching a lot of psychological and academic reading, in addition to talking to the brilliant Lily Brett, who wrote the book that this is based on. And one of the things that it spoke about is people moving through the world feeling like there is a constant threat, but not being able to identify what that threat is.
In our final seconds, what do you think audiences are going to take away from watching Treasure?
Honestly, the response that you've had is my dream response. I spoke to someone earlier who said that she felt a similar, though her family is not Jewish, that she felt a similar experience with her parents and their experience as immigrants. And I think that response of people feeling like they see something of themselves and it comforts them to see that experience reflected back, it's everything I could want. So honestly, you're leaving me in this interview with exactly what I could have dreamed of, and thank you for that.
How long do you plan to stay?
Till one of us kills the other.
Mute.
You don't have to say the word mute, just pressing the button.
Mute.
So, Tuesday.
Dad's mental and physical health, it is literally dependent on whether the Sox win or lose.
Sox lost again.
So, I am creating a safe zone where the Sox can't lose. I've even got the boy who delivers papers in this bubble.
Go Sox!
Curse over cancer.
I kind of want to start, David, by saying this touched me on such a level because I took care of my dad, and it was a lot funnier than you think it would be to be with him and have the walls come down.
No, I think that's. I didn't have that experience of actually caring for my dad, but I imagine I did during filming was caring for my mother who was dying at that point, and when things are so kind of real, those are the funniest moments that we, it's not all laughs, obviously, but when you can get a laugh, it's one of the deeper laughs that you can get.
But those laughs are truly heartwarming, and they take you to a place that, you kind of fail to visit, from time to time. And this brought a lot of that back. So thank you so much for writing, directing, and starring in this.
It was honestly my pleasure and honor, and when I got to have, when I had the good fortune of casting Stephanie and Logan, you know, a lot of my work was done for me in that sense, as a director anyway.
Now, Stephanie, let's chat about Mariana. Talk to me about putting on her skin.
You know, at the time when David and I first talked about this film as something that he wanted me to take part in, my father was actually dying at the time, and I was doing a lot of studying on my own about palliative care and nursing and taking on that role in my family. So when this discussion between David and I happened, I knew that I was just the right person to take it on, because I had this like depth of knowledge that I wouldn't have had if my father hadn't been dying at the time. So I understood her in a really strange way, because I had kind of done what she does in the film. I had taken on that role for my own family.
Was there any hesitation on your part to take on the role?
Yeah, I was afraid I was going to bring all my trauma and my own sadness to the film, but I actually think it serviced me in a really amazing, incredible way, because, you know, if we're lucky enough to have parents that we know and love, then the time will come when they leave us. And so that experience is really, loss and grief is a really universal experience, and at the same time it's really individual. So I felt like there was no saying no to this film. It was only a yes from the beginning.
And I'm glad you did. David, wearing the three hats that you have, I mean, director, producer, you know, and actor and writer, that's 4 hats. Which do you prefer?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I do love directing. I don't know which I love more, but I just wanted to like circle back to what Stephanie was saying. I would just say, you know, because we had that discussion when we were talking about Stephanie doing the film, and I was a little afraid, you know, to even ask, you know, her to do the film in that state, you know, but I was also too kind of excited to have her come and be in my film to actually say, hey, no, you shouldn't do this. But we were all, both, Stephanie obviously was very aware of it, and I was very aware of it. And I think, you know, just watching her kind of negotiate her moments and knowing what these things were actually meaning to her personally, which nobody else really knew besides Stephanie and myself on set probably, was really quite beautiful and brave, I thought. And I'm grateful that she, you know, had the kind of creative fortitude to do that at that time in her life. And I don't know that I've ever thanked her for that, but I am thankful.
I thank you for it too, Stephanie. What do you think audiences are going to take away from watching Reverse the Curse, Stephanie?
My real hope is that, you know, I wish my dad was around to see this film, because I think for many men of his generation and many men just in general, it's really hard to talk about your feelings, and it's hard to talk about them with your father. And I think the great sort of bridge for many men and their feelings is sports. And I think in this movie, you get this really amazing glimpse into this relationship, this very fraught relationship between a father and son, that the bridge for them is baseball. And it's a space where they can talk to each other, where they can share ideas, where they can poke fun at each other, where they can argue. That feels like a safe space to do that. And I just think, like, with the film coming out on Father's Day, and like the sort of difficulty that many people have talking about their feelings with their parents, I hope this film kind of gives you a little bit of a, I don't know, like a key to unlock a door, maybe to some conversations that you've never had with your parents.
David, in our final moments we have, what do you think audiences are going to take away from the film?
Well, gee, I love Stephanie's answer a lot. I'm probably going to steal it in the next interview if I can. If I get to go before her, I will. I would say something very similar. You know, I just think, but I think overall, you know, it's considered a small movie. It's a small budget movie, but I think it's a big movie, you know, because it's about big things. And I think it's a movie like the kinds of movies that I grew up loving, which are ones where you go to the theater to have an experience of laughter and of tears. And if you can do both of those things in a movie, that's a success to me. That's a big movie to me. So that's the kind of movie I feel that this is.
Oh, thank you both. David, you're a perfect loving curmudgeon in this. And what a great job. Stephanie, it's a pleasure to meet you, and have a great day, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Colin, is Dad an honest man?
An honest man? Where'd you get that from, Rose? A man that gives you everything.
Some questions are just better left unanswered.
He doesn't do things right all the time, but he does them for the right reasons. Our families came in with nothing. You're led to believe that things are fair here. They're not.
Yay! How are you, Tony?
I'm good, Jennifer. How are you?
I am exhausted, but I'm good.
You know, being Italian and watching this film, it's like watching home movies.
That's right. It's so true.
First of all, congratulations on your directorial debut for a feature film. I know you've done some shorts, but
no, I haven't.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, this
produced
is
a short. That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is, where did this idea come from? Because you're the writer. I mean, this family stories.
Yeah. No, I grew up around this. I grew up around families like this. And it was a lot of seeing these young women being so incredibly violently mad. And I didn't understand why. I chalked it up to, well, I guess their families in the mafia, and I guess I'd be mad as well. But as I left Staten Island and went out into my career and into life, I realized that some of that anger that I saw was some of my own, and I didn't understand what that meant at first. And then I realized it was because in the business and life, I had a set of rules that I didn't necessarily agree with, like who I should be and what I should look like and how I should act. And in the business, I had an age limit. I had an expiration date, like, you know, I'm not this and too much of that. And I just thought, I didn't agree with this. I can't imagine how those young women that I left behind felt. Yeah. So as it is in the mafia, but it's really more about breaking those generational rules for anyone.
It's a powerful position to be in. You know, anybody that stands behind someone who thinks they're in power or has power really doesn't have the power without that support that comes from that partner who understands not only that human being, that man, but understands what he's all about too.
100%. Like, you know, someone had asked me earlier, you know, why didn't Francine leave? And it's like, she didn't have the tools. She definitely didn't have the tools. But like you said, she held the strings. She knew where the bodies were buried, so to speak.
Literally.
Exactly.
Yeah. In directing, though, I mean, that's all the things that you have done in your career have led up to this. Was every set you're on a learning experience? Was it going to school?
100%, because I wanted to go to NYU. I wanted to be a filmmaker, go to NYU. I couldn't afford to go. And back then, there wasn't a lot of representation of what I wanted to do. So I just thought, well, I guess I'm supposed to be an actor. And throughout my years, this is a lot of where the frustration came from. There was so much more that I wanted to say, and that's never a good place for an actress to speak, other than the lines that you're given. So I really, I was taking in so much. You know, people always ask me, was this hard? And it was like, the process to get it made was excruciating, but on set, directing and telling the story through this world, through the shots, that was not, because I have been in class for 23 years on sets.
What do you think audiences are going to take away from watching Fresh Kills?
Well, I tell you, this time last year we were premiering in Tribeca, and I was, of course, nervous. The standing ovations that I received night after night made me realize that I wasn't wrong in what I was giving. But then I had a year of film festivals, and I cannot tell you how this hits audiences. It means the world to me, because they're getting the message here.
Jennifer, such a pleasure to talk with you and meet up. You're
Thank
a
you.
terrific director and actress.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us for Screen Chatter. If you'd like to follow us online, visit us at screenchatter.com. You can check out our many interviews, and you could also check out my reviews. And if you'd like to follow us on social media, we're available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, thanks for joining us. I'm Tony Toscano, and we'll see you next week right here for another Screen Chatter.